All right, it looks like we've got a full house here. So welcome everybody to the Cargo on the Akuity Platform webinar. Will be hosted by myself, Nicholas Mori, a senior developer advocate at Akuity, and I've got Jesse with me. Jesse Suen is the CTO of Akuity and one of the original creators of the Argo project.
Hey Nick, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you great.
All right. Yeah, let's get started. So I think what I'd like to do is kind of give people a quick overview about Cargo first, and just in case we have people not too familiar with it. And then I'll get through like a demo of Cargo. We just released the 0.5 release a few days ago, and there's a lot of new stuff in there that we're excited to show. And then we'll show how it's like to actually provision Cargo on our platform. Okay, so let's start with why did we build Cargo? What problem were we trying to solve? And the short answer is that the requirements of today's deploy pipelines are getting more and more complex. With the advent of cloud native, Kubernetes, containers, microservices, organizations are starting to accumulate more and more environments, and they also want to start implementing more advanced and safer practices, such as like A/B testing, canarying. They want, with all these environments, they want to continuously test and make sure they're deploying properly before bugs get into production. And on top of all this, GitOps kind of just made everything harder. We've been helping a lot of our customers with Argo CD, but Argo CD is actually the easy part. The hard part is getting Argo CD to deploy systematically to all your environments, coordinating the Git commits, running tests between those environments. And so that's the problem we're trying to address with Cargo. And traditionally, people gravitate towards using CI systems to solve this. Your GitHub Actions, your Jenkins, your GitLab, and I think this works pretty good for simpler use cases with a small number of environments. But it starts to fall apart when you start to try and accomplish something like this. So in reality, you have hot fixes where you might need to deploy something straight to prod, or you want to do start implementing A/B testing. You want to promote things other than image tags. You want to promote configuration changes equally, which are equally important as an image tag. Or part of your process is just manual, like it's not really feasible for you to take your commits and go fully autonomous to production. So when you really think about the problem, fundamentally, CI and CD have different goals, and we think that these CI systems are being over leveraged to do the work of CD. With CI, your goal is given some piece of code, you want to produce an artifact. For CD, your goal is given that artifact, you want to roll it safely out as possible. CI pipelines tend to be short-lived. They have this predefined beginning and end, and your pipeline is done when that job completes. When you define your CI pipeline, you do it in this like rigid top-down definition, like a Jenkins file, which is it's fine for when you have like short, repeatable things like unit or EDE tests. But when you start to have these longer, more complex and dynamic pipelines, it becomes really hard to manage. When you think about CD, it's actually this long drawn out process where you have things like canarying, manual testing, manual approvals, and you need more flexibility. So your deployment process might involve a A/B test, which you might not even know which version, the A or the B, should be the one that eventually goes to production. Um, and yeah, so this is why we built Kargo.
Yeah, I think we've definitely all faced these challenges. I know I have in previous organizations where we started with GitOps and it was fairly simple. We have our source and our destination and we define our sync policy. And that's great for getting the current desired state. But when we actually wanted to systematically make changes to that desired state based on our definition of how we promote things, that's where the real work came in, the day two stuff. Especially you're already working with all these CI workflows, so it becomes, when all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail. When all you have is your CI workflow, you tend to start using it for all of your continuous delivery or your continuous deployment, your promotion of changes, even though it's not necessarily ideal. It's what you have in front of you. So, how do you think we can solve these challenges, Jesse?
Yeah. Yeah, so we built Kargo for that purpose. And the way you can think about Kargo is a multi-stage application promotion and delivery tool. So you can think of it as a layer above Argo CD that coordinates the promotion of your build artifacts. Typically, that's your container image from your environment to environment, and it does it in a GitOps focused way. Yeah, so with Kargo, you get the ability to define your pipeline in an extremely flexible way. I mentioned earlier that Jenkins files are this single file top down definition of all your entire pipeline. With Kargo, you actually define it from the bottom up. Like, so you define each stage, which models your environment from the bottom up, and then you link them together. You connect them on like but through dependencies. So it's really easy when you need to modify or add to your pipeline because you're doing it in piecemeal. So Kargo provides a really powerful dashboard for visualizing your changes across your environment. And our goal with Kargo is actually to hide the nuances of GitOps. This is, when this is for end users who don't really care about GitOps, but they were told they need to practice GitOps. But really, what they want to do is, get their stuff into production. And GitOps is just, the way. So we don't, we make it easier for you to practice it without having to, really live and breathe it. So Kargo gives you safer deployments with enforced processes and guardrails. What I mean by that is it's still a pipeline at the end of the day. Things have to go and promote in this certain way. And Kargo provides the enforcement and the features to allow you to enforce these practices to your users. And finally, the testing and verification. So this is typically your test that you might be doing in your CI. When you're defining your stages, you can define like what tests you want to execute in that stage after every promotion, and gate that downstream promotion depending on the results of testing. So let's kind of at a high level show you how it works. So you have your typical, container repository, your GitOps repo, and you have your CI system, people like DevOps engineers. So something is going to affect the change, whether that's a CI pushing a new image, or if it's your engineer making a config change in your GitOps repo. Once those changes are made, Kargo detects that, so it monitors your container repositories and your GitOps repo, and sees that there's new stuff to promote. And then it can either automatically or manually promote those changes using GitOps. So that literally means it can make a Git commit to your repo or open a pull request to your repo and wait for that pull request to complete. And then it optionally integrates with Argo CD to click the sync button or refresh the application. So it's basically telling Argo CD, hey, it's time to sync the new stuff. It doesn't just work with Argo CD. So if you're using Flux, that would work fine too. It's just at the end of the day, it's just GitOps config repos. And then once it's deployed, this is when you can start doing your verification and testing. So we have a ton of integrations, and due to the fact that we re-leveraged Argo rollouts analysis, which I'll talk to a little later. But then you can do your Datadog query, Prometheus queries. You can kick off a test script through a Kubernetes job, and all of those can gate the downstream promotion. So if step 4 is successful, then it can automatically repeat and promote to downstream. So it's kind of like what you expect out of your CI/CD, but you're doing it in a more GitOps focused, in a CD centric approach. Okay, so that's how it works at a high level. I think probably it's best to just see it in action. And we just released 0.5, so I'm excited to show a lot of new features that we have. All right, so the main view of Kargo is this pipeline view. This is the view that provides an overview of all your environments. You can see what versions of your software is deployed to each environment. And what you're in this example, what you're seeing is an 8-stage deploy pipeline with a number of environments ranging from dev to production. And the far left, we have our first dev stage, and you can see dev is subscribed to 2 things. It's subscribed to a image repository, so it watches this for new, essentially new image tags get pushed. But it's also subscribed to Git repository, and this is watching for Git commits to your Kubernetes YAML, your manifest changes. And so what that means is when either those things change, we will detect it and produce a artifact, or what we call freight, to be a promotable thing in to your stages. So that takes us up here. This is all your deployable build artifacts, which we call freight. They're shown from most recent to oldest. And as new images and images are pushed, like new freight will start appearing towards the left, and then you can start just promoting them. You probably notice things are color coded. This is the kind of showing you what's running where. So all production right now is all running 0.5.7 that's with the manifest at this git commit. Dev is all the way over here and running this, and over here you can see on the right side, you can see a kind of a history of what was recently deployed based on like the intensity of that color. All right, so actually let's go ahead and show you what it's like to promote something. So I like to use environment variables as an example, because I feel like image tags are the easy one, but what's more interesting is promoting something like an environment variable. So let's promote something like Kargo webinar. All right, so I'll refresh this. So we should see a new freight just got produced. It detected this new promotable artifact. So if we click on this, we can see that this is the commit that I want to promote. And to promote something, you just choose the environment that you want to promote in, and then you can promote either into it or you can promote out of it, like to downstream. So one thing you'll notice is, okay, so if I click dev, I'm able to promote everything, right? But if I click on stage, it's a subset of what I can promote, because the things I can promote to downstream are only the things, artifacts that successfully got verified in the upstream. And because dev hasn't yet verified this brand new environment variable, I can't go the stage. Okay,
So
so yeah, you have a question.
that freight that we're verifying, that contains the entire state that we need for that stage, that application, right? It's the container image, it's the Git manifest, or the Kubernetes manifest in Git, and so it represents a point in time for that stage as a whole, right? Not just a particular container image.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and I think Kargo is kind of built on the benefits of GitOps, right? And with GitOps, you have the ability to have point in time like state of your entire world, of your desired state. So really what we're doing is kind of like moving pointers around to or re-rendering the YAML at certain points in time to and then clicking Argo CD sync and making that Git commit and then telling Argo CD to go to that point in time. So yeah, GitOps kind of enabled like this ability to kind of really just pick and choose where you want to be for different environments.
Okay, and so that point that you were making about staging only has a subset of those artifacts, the artifacts that contain the Kubernetes manifests and the container image that I want to deploy. It only contains a subset because we've validated on dev that this is a valid set. This is a valid state, basically, that we're willing to move to the next stage of our application's lifecycle.
That's right. And then this is why we say Kargo provides these guardrails, right? So without Kargo, it becomes harder to enforce that, right? Like if you want to have a policy in your organization, like I things have to be tested before in lower environments before they go to production. That's what Kargo helps you do. So I'm not. It's not possible for. I mean, I can manually approve it, but right now the Kargo prevents these mistakes from happening by enforcing process.
Right, right. And that freight, right now we're generating it from a GitHub repo and a container registry, but it can be more than that, right? We can also do a Helm chart of repositories, and can you do like multiple container registries, multiple Git registries or repositories?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first one, yeah, the Helm is also a third thing we support. So the three that we support are Mon and Git repositories, um, container repositories, and the third is being Helm repositories. And with with Helm, how it works is there's going to be a new semantic version of a chart, and what we can do when we detect that new chart, we'll produce a freight reference to that chart as the same way we do with container tags. And then to promote something, we'll go into your GitOps repo and update a dependency, like a Helm, a Helm dependency to bump the semantic version of that thing to so you can update your chart.
Right, right. Okay, one last question about freight, because I think it's a really important concept to understand before we move on to the actual like promotion pipeline side of it. So one of the questions from chat from Robert is about I make a config change and I make a code change that generates a new image, but those don't happen at perfectly the same time, right?
Yeah.
So how do I make sure that I'm promoting the correct container image and the correct version of my Kubernetes manifest in Git when I'm promoting to a stage?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, because one could, if you do it off timing, then maybe the image is not compatible with the manifest. So there are techniques you can do. You could not have it auto promote like everything and produce new freight. You you could do it based on tagging. So maybe a certain Git tag is, you basically want to accumulate something, a bunch of changes, and then say, okay, this is the combination. By default, if you do nothing, Kargo will kind of permutate the tips of each thing it's subscribed to. But if those can't always be come together, like you want to do a strategy where you're like more intentional about like combining. In the future, actually, there's a open issue right now to have the ability to we'll pull up a new a panel, and then you can maybe select the combinations. It's kind of like a mixer of subscriptions that you want to combine. Right, that's something that we actually, I think this coming cycle we want to start working on that one.
Right. So that's kind of a place where you can go and you can craft the releases that you want to in a more intentional way than probably right now people are crafting their releases just, there's no set place where that gets defined declaratively once they're done crafting it. It's kind of either in their heads or it's tribal knowledge.
Yeah. And this problem comes about because we're basically enabling more capability. So if it's image tags, I mentioned image tags is the easy one. Everyone can do image tags. But as soon as you say, oh, you can do configuration change, that's when you start to have these type of problems. Like, and yeah, we're actively thinking about like how to enable that. And I mean, now that we've enabled manifest changes, you have like a different problem that you have to solve, which we want to do with like mixing freight and stuff.
Right, right. So just to kind of close that out with a simple example here, if you look at the freight line you have right now, you have the same container image across multiple freights. Like if we take a look at the first three on the left, but then you have different commit SHAs. So if I knew this particular commit SHA had the config change that I needed, and this container image has the code change that I need, then I know to pick that freight. That's kind of the solution for right now, but the goal in the future is to provide a more intuitive approach to like produce only the freight that you actually want with the correct combinations.
That's great. Yeah. Okay.
I think we're ready. Yeah. I think we can promote.
All right. So promoting really is so it detects this new thing I want to promote. This is a reference to the thing I'm the Git SHA and the combination of Git SHA and container image. And so you just click promote. And so next, what you'll see is actually let me show you the Argo CD app because it's actually still syncing. Okay, so I missed it, but Argo CD just synced a few seconds ago to this SHA. This SHA was also made. This is the Kargo webinar environment variable that I just added, and so this is what Argo CD just synced to.
So just to make that clear, so Kargo was sitting on top almost, like if we look at this kind of like a stack, and it made the change in Git, and then Argo CD is under that watching Git and actually doing the delivery to the cluster, right?
Yes. And I actually have auto sync disabled. But if you could have auto sync enabled or disabled. I think because Kargo noticed that it was disabled, it clicked the sync button for me. Otherwise, it would just refresh the application.
Right.
Okay, so that's kind of what a promotion looks like. Oh, before we move on to analysis, I do want to point out like Kargo can make the Git commit directly, but it can also open a pull request instead. So let's say so I have my central environment set up with pull request instead of Git commit. So I'm just gonna promote like this older version. to central. And what you'll see is it's running this promotion. This will run indefinitely. And the reason it'll be indefinite is because it has should have just opened a pull request. Yeah. And this is a change where I'm going back to 0053, which where I went backwards. I just using this to point out the ability for Kargo to, follow your processes. We're maybe using branch protection, and it can open pull requests of the change instead of the commit.
Right. So
I'll just
I can do
close.
my approval in the pull request then, right? Like I don't have to have a separate process to do these approvals. Like if I want to live in Git and have the process there, we can keep it that way, right?
Yeah, because your approval process might be Git approvals. And so I'm going to reject this. And next time when I refresh this stage, you'll see that this this was a failed promotion, and it failed because the pull request was closed without merging. So I didn't end up promoting after all.
Can I get to that pull request from that stages page? Like, does it lead me
None.
right
Yeah,
to it?
it's
Yeah.
a to-do
Okay, I'll
item.
open
Yeah.
issue.
Okay, so I think next is actually kind of where I'm kind of probably most excited about this point in time with the features, which is analysis. Okay, so Kargo has the ability to run tests and verification after a promotion. So how it works is like after the promotion, after the GitOps change and the Argo CD sync and waiting for that sync operation to complete, it can then kick off verification. So first, let's talk about what does it mean to verify something. And so we have this new tab called analysis templates. You might have heard of analysis templates because it's actually a whole subcomponent of Argo rollouts that we're reusing in Kargo. And you'll see why in a bit. But I have 4 templates. They're kind of just toy examples. One is a what we call a web metric. Basically, it's just going to hit up a REST API. It's going to try to evaluate like success based on your criteria. So in this criteria, the success condition is like when I hit up this this cat fact API and I look at this status dot verified, I want that to be true, and I'm going to query it 5 times, 5 seconds apart. I will only tolerate 3 failures before the verification is considered unsuccessful. And if you look at this one, it's kind of similar. I have a criteria where this will always fail. I also have some other analysis templates. This one is doing a Kubernetes job. So this is where you would want to maybe write a test script or integration test that you want to kick off after promotion. And in this case, this is nothing but like a Alpine container that sleeps for 30 seconds. And then my other one is just a Alpine container that sleeps for 30 seconds and then fails by exiting with a non-zero exit code. Okay, so that's analysis templates. If you can read about it on Argo rollouts, we have a ton of more examples there. But the 2 stages I have that do analysis are my A/B tests. So looking at the test A, you'll see that I have verification enabled, and it's going to kick off that cat fact template. And then for my B environment, I am going to kick off analysis, but it'll be the cat fact fail. So for A/B test, I'm gonna you want to deploy 2 different things. So I'll pick 60 this combination. And for B, let's move it to this. Okay, so this should be deploying, and yeah, that looks like it's deployed, promoted, and we can see that the verification is running for A. I can look at the analysis, um, and you can see it's starting to take those measurements um, that basically evaluating the status of verified, and it took 3 measurements so far. If I look at B, so it promoted, but the verification failed. So if I look at verification and I look at this B's template and I look at the measurements, you can see that my success criteria did not evaluate to true, and so verification failed. So now, like, what does this mean for downstream? So what that means is um, I I can promote what was successful and verified in A, but you notice I can't promote what B got promoted to. And this is part of those guardrails that I keep mentioning. And everything that you've seen I've been doing in Kargo is all like with ClickOps and button clicks. But think about like all of this stuff being fully automated, because right now I have everything auto promotion disabled. So that's um, if you want it to be like fully autonomous with like your CI, you can do that. You just make sure these stages are set to be auto promoted. But for the purpose of demo, I'm doing everything manual.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So, in the super basic example of qualifying a freight, we say as long as this freight has been deployed to a lower environment, it's a candidate for downstream stages. However, the analysis runs allow us to be much more detailed about qualifying our freight, right? It's based on metrics, based on tests we
Mhm.
want to run, based on any really output from our application, and then so we can actually uh, the things that would have existed outside of tooling and would have been just knowledge for the people releasing the application to know, okay, we're willing to deploy it to the next environment. We can actually write that into analysis templates now and
Yeah.
have it be a declarative approach, have it be something that we collaborate on and iterate on instead of being like the knowledge of the release team, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. So analysis, in fact, you might have your standard golden signals of error rate and saturation and like those typical testing, and like those can be centrally defined, or maybe you share templates around with each other. There's actually that's like a whole nother topic on how to leverage Argo roles templates. They can be parameterized. It's pretty powerful. That's why we wanted to re-leverage it as part of Kargo, because like we spent years working on Argo rollouts, bringing that up. Um, but I did. This is actually a good chance to show what is my escape hatch. Like I have a hot fix, right? This thing that didn't pass my B test is I really want to get it to prod. So you do have that escape hatch where you can approve something, manually approve something, for prod. And this is not everyone can do this. This is an actual Kubernetes, um, a permission that you can um, decide to give to your users or not. But I just want to point out that it's possible. So I'm going to manually approve this to go to West. And so now um, this this piece of freight can go to West. If I look at the oops, let me not click that. Um, if I yeah, uh, if I look at the freight, I can see that this freight has been verified for it, but I also have this new thing saying like it wasn't really verified in um, certain stages, but I can go to prod West with it. The other prods I can't go to it because it wasn't approved for it, but for West I can. So that's kind of like your prod hotfix escape hatch that you probably will need eventually at some point in time.
Yeah, yeah, we have our golden path, which is go from here to here to here and qualify along the way and then end up in production. But I guess one of the advantages of this compared to using like a CI engine to manage our promotion across environments is that you can actually easily handle failure cases like this. You can say that, you know, I want manual approval of this freight of this state to go to this stage because I say so, not because you know it's gone through everything else.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. I think that's kind of what I wanted to cover with the cargo demo. There's a lot of this new stuff we added in 05. This is also new. We have a page where you can manage all your credentials, your and by the way, um Cargo is meant to be like a hard tenancy. So we use namespaces under the covers to kind of uh, projects are equivalent to a namespace essentially. So users can manage their own credentials. Self-service is a big goal of Cargo, being able to for operators to enable their developer teams to kind of self-service themselves, take themselves to prod when they need, and not always have to involve like a SRE team um, to to affect those changes.
That's great. So with the addition of the analysis templates for this, we talked a lot about Argo rollouts. So something people are probably wondering is if they're already an Argo rollouts user or they were considering Argo rollouts, how does Kargo come into the picture then?
Yeah, it's a great question. Also, I'm always asked that as well. Argo rollouts can always has a place because for single level workloads, Argo rollouts is still like ideal, I would say, for doing it. It integrates with your Istio, your traffic routers, and it can manipulate Istio weights to kind of get percentage level shifts to a new version of your deployment. I think where rollouts doesn't do is when you need a bigger picture kind of thing. If your whole thing that you want to orchestrate is a stack of microservices, rollouts doesn't handle that because it's a replacement for a deployment. It's a drop-in replacement of a deployment resource. So there is some overlap in the concepts of cargo and rollouts, but I would say they are kind of operating at different levels, and they actually are complementary in that regard.
Right. So kind of like how Kargo is on top of Argo CD orchestrating
Yeah.
the releases and the changes. It's the same here where Kargo's on top saying, okay, we've deployed it into that environment, we've validated it, and you can now do the promotion to the next one. But that actual delivery into the environment and the individual rollout there can still be handled by Argo rollouts to say, I want to do a weighted canary within this one deployment. I can't
Yeah.
do it across multiple microservices like I could with Kargo, but you know, at the individual level, it does that portion.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Fantastic.
All right. So I think we'll kind of give a little summary like what Cargo brings to the table, and then we'll get to Cargo on the Akuity platform. Yeah. So with Cargo, as you've seen, you get better visibility into your promotion process by seeing all your environments at a glance, understanding what's running, where, what's safe to deploy, um, and then you have these you're enabled with all these more advanced promotion techniques. So one of them being like, hey, you can now promote your configuration just as easy as you can promote your image tags. We give you that escape hatch with the manual overrides for production. That's kind of always hard to accomplish in CI. And pretty importantly, we Cargo has a GitOps focus. Like we are orchestrating your Git writebacks, which is part of image updater style stuff component of Kargo. We open pull requests for you instead of making commits directly if you choose to do that. Rollbacks are really kind of just moving metadata around with GitOps, so that's like what GitOps kind of helps enable us to do. And then you have these progressive delivery features where you can have these guardrails and automated testing and verification before going downstream. And oh yeah, and lastly, on the note of testing verification, these are just these are not all of the integrations that analysis templates can do. This is most of them, but actually, and even you can have a rollout supports a plugin system even if these aren't enough for you. So you can actually code your own if you have some in-house query engine that you want to talk to. All right. So I guess now, well, you know all about Kargo. So what we're announcing today is actually the fact that Kargo is now available on the Akuity platform as a fully managed SaaS service. So what you get with Kargo on the Akuity platform, you get a dedicated fully managed control plane as a service. So we will run the Kubernetes cluster and Kargo installed on that for you. If you're also using us to manage your Argo CD, you have this tight integration between Argo CD and Kargo because Kargo will want to click sync on an Argo CD button, and also you might want to get up to your Kargo manifest and deploy it to the Kargo cluster. So like that integration is pretty seamless. There's a nice UI for managing Kargo, and every Kargo events that get submitted, or if you make changes to your instance or anything kind of interest, like we'll store those and persist them so you can always go back and figure out what's going on. But I think probably the biggest difference in our platform is our agent architecture. So with our platform, there's some use cases that you can unlock where Kargo, for example, let's say you have in cluster Prometheus, and that's not reachable from like a central location. So our agent can reside inside one of your clusters. In that case, it can actually talk to that in cluster Prometheus or in cluster service for that matter, because maybe you have a service that isn't also exposed. Another use case is if you run Argo CD per cluster, then the agent will interface with that in Argo CD, and these are the benefits. And with our architecture, like we handle the whole life cycle of Kargo. So when you upgrade Kargo version, we'll go and also upgrade all your agents for you. Okay, so let's just show a quick example of Kargo on the Akuity platform. So if you've used our platform before, this probably looks familiar, but we now have this Kargo tab. And to create a Kargo, it's just the same as Argo CD. Just give it a name in the version. All right. So once your Kargo is created, you need to create an agent. And an agent is really just the Kargo component and controller that need to reconcile your stages. In a simple case, you just need one. You just need a default agent, and we can host that for you. You can run on our platform, and that's fine if you're only using like fully public services like GitHub.com, Datadog.com, Argo, Akuity managed Argo CD. And so if you need to do anything in your private data center, such as reach a self-hosted Git, a self-hosted Prometheus or Argo CD, or you want to run like a Kubernetes job, you would choose to do a self-hosted. Choose that option. So you just create an agent. I'll just call it default. Um, and then you just install this into your cluster. And then that's what it takes to get an instance.
And so
Uh,
after I install those manifests into my cluster, um, I don't have to manage that agent anymore, right? The Akuity platform is the one responsible for the whole life cycle of that agent running in the cluster.
that's correct. Yeah. So if you ever come to upgrade Argo, sorry, Kargo, um, we will go and upgrade the components in the cluster because they kind of have to move in lockstep whenever you change configuration. It's not just upgrades actually. If you maybe if you're changing settings or something that need to also happen in the agent side, then that will happen as well.
And and that agent running in the infrastructure that I brought in my Kubernetes cluster, it's only connecting out back to the Akuity platform to communicate. I don't need direct access from the Akuity platform into my clusters.
Yes, yeah. So the agent will only need egress out back out to the control plane. No inbound is necessary. Um, okay, so in the settings, you'll have things like you configuring OIDC for single sign-on. Um, you know whether you want the admin account enabled or actually, probably what you should be doing is immediately enabling OIDC and then mapping a either an email address or a OIDC group or a subject to an admin or even like if you want to give everyone read only access, you can do that binding to these predefined roles. We have a whole section where I mentioned we use Argo rollouts. So that means we get Datadog integration, New Relic, and InfluxDB. There's actually probably more we should add, like CloudWatch. Um, but yeah, so I can easily just give choose my Datadog region, give some credentials, and then now my I can start doing Datadog queries as part of my verification. Um, um, and any changes that I'm making here go into our regular audit log. So you can see that I created this Kargo webinar instance. I created an agent, and I think I changed something. I forget what I changed. Um, all right, all right. Yeah. So that's Kargo on the Qt platform. Um,
So, like I just want to go through one example with the agents to see if I've got my head around it. So,
yeah.
I've got a Kargo instance running on the Akuity platform, and I'm bringing my own Kubernetes cluster with Prometheus running in that cluster, and I also have, say, Datadog for my applications. What agent setup do I need to be able to
Hmm.
run analysis templates against my Datadog and Prometheus before qualifying a freight to downstream stages?
Yeah. So the quick answer is that as soon as you have one of your things that need private access, you should check this toggle to self-host it.
Hmm.
Otherwise, if everything you do is on the public internet, we can host it for you, and you can leave this unchecked. But really, uh, this is like if you have a private Git server that we can't reach, if you have uh yeah your self-hosted Prometheus or self internal service, or and the last one being, let's say you run Argo CD yourself and you run it Argo CD per cluster, but you need Kargo to kind of click the sync button or watch, look at the health of an app and wait for stuff to complete. This is also where you would check this toggle. Otherwise, yeah, if you're using everything public, we will host it. You don't have to install anything.
Okay, fantastic.
Cool. Yeah. So I think that's all I wanted to cover.
Yeah, I think now
Oh, roadmap.
we're
Yeah.
looking forward. Yeah.
So what do we want to do? So this is kind of longer term vision of where we see Kargo, the project going. First off, we don't want to restrict Kargo to just Kubernetes, right? I think a good example is a lot of times people need to promote their Terraform stuff. So instead of just Kubernetes YAML, what about can I manipulate or copy files around with Terraform HCL? I think, and then to go in with that, we want to make a plugin system where Kargo can support non-Kubernetes deployments, like Lambdas, Terraforms, uploading assets to CDNs. But we don't want Kargo to be a deploy tool. We want it to integrate with the better tools that exist out there, the Argo CDs, the HashiCorp Cloud, the Atlantis. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel for deployment, but we want to integrate with what you are already practicing in your data centers.
So
Yeah.
this becomes again, the theme is that Kargo becomes this layer on top of my existing tooling. The processes, the tooling that I already have for making my changes or I guess delivering my changes is already there. But I can then add Kargo in on top to um, really like codify the existing processes that we already have and put it in like make a systematic approach instead of it being all these manual changes or these bespoke CI scripts. Like um, Kargo can now handle those changes.
Yeah, because if you think about it, that whole process that Kargo is that brings to the table, it's the same for all these underlying technologies. What Kargo is giving you is the proper process and enforcement and the dashboard, the UI, which is applicable to other technologies. It shouldn't just be for Kubernetes. Um, And last one is just we we want people to Kargo to integrate well into environments. So things like sending Slack, Jira. We understand a lot of people have um, these processes like opening up a ServiceNow ticket or a Jira ticket. Um, maybe that's also a gating approval step that needs to happen before it can go to production. So being able to hook into your practices is important for us as well.
That's great. So I'm super excited about the first parts of this roadmap. So I want to ask kind of a clarifying question. Um, so if I were managing Terraform configuration with Kargo, I would see a promotion pipeline of this is my dev Terraform configuration, staging, prod. I'd get the same ability to like qualify my changes to my HCL before I apply it to stage by
Mm-hmm.
running analysis templates. And like I get all that same functionality, but for Terraform changes.
Yes. So let's start with analysis. So analysis could just be your test script, right? Like that's applicable regardless of if it's Kubernetes deploy or Terraform apply. The only thing that's really different from like a Kubernetes deploy and a Terraform is like two things. One, instead of manipulating YAML, you might be manipulating HCL, or the way you copy and manipulate files around is different. So that's one difference. And two, the way you actually carry out the deploy is in the case of Argo CD and Kubernetes, where we're making that config change and then clicking sync on Argo CD. But instead of clicking sync, what if we did, I don't know, HashiCorp Cloud like apply, whatever they have, or Atlantis apply. That's a better one. And we wait for the Atlantis pull request to get merged or before it. So that part we can be abstracted like into a plugin system where we don't. It's a black box to us, to Kargo. It's just really just okay. It's promoting. I don't really know what it's doing under the covers. Like that's up to the plugin to figure out. I'll just wait for it to complete, and you get back to me when it's done, and then I'll kick off my your standard analysis templates and approvals. So we there's a lot of stuff we can share across all these technologies. Like Freight is it's really just metadata about what you want to promote. So if that metadata today in Kargo is a pointer to an image tag, a Git location, and a Helm chart, but tomorrow it could be a pointer to a zip file for in the case of like a Lambda. It could be maybe pointer to a release artifact in GitHub. I don't know. It's just Freight is really just metadata about stuff you want to promote into an environment, which is applicable to everyone.
Right. Well, that's very exciting. I think we're ready to share a couple call to actions for people. So if you're interested in early access to Kargo on the Akuity platform, I will share a link in the chat here for people to go share the same link from the slide for people to go to. We also have a Discord community with over 400 other members that if you're trying out Kargo and you have questions or you have ideas about how it could solve your use cases, or if you're looking to contribute and you need help getting started, the Discord community is the perfect place to go. And obviously, last but not least, this is an open source product that you can go and be an active contributor to. We're on version 0.50, so we're still actively iterating, evolving the project. Our Kargo team is working diligently every day at implementing all the features that everybody is requesting. So it would be great to get more contributors in there, more eyes, more use cases, so that we can make sure this tool applies to everybody or can solve your use case. And we're hoping to do some Q&A. We have 1 minute here left in the webinar, so I'll do my best to see if I can find one good question to answer live here. If not, again, I highly recommend people join the Discord community because the team is in there answering questions every day. So it's a great spot that if we don't answer it now, we'll do it there. Looks like our team has been doing a great job answering the questions in the chat. Here's a fun one. How would Kargo and Terraform state interact? Do we leave that all to the promotion tool, or does Kargo have any interaction with it?
That's a good question. So I today Kargo does have a native understanding of I could be missing the question, but Kargo does have a native integration with Argo CD and understands the state of a Argo CD application. I would say Terraform, if we just probably carry out the deploy through, but I don't think if you're doing stuff out of band from in Terraform that outside of Kargo, we would suddenly know what was going on and then update Freight accordingly. So we could probably only track like what was performed inside Kargo and kind of update stuff accordingly. If it kind of happens outside, then it might be inaccurate, I guess, where things are currently Kargo thinks things are deployed to.
So kind of like the same problem with with Kubernetes. If you let people go and make changes outside of the desired state, you're going to get unexpected drift. It's not really a cargo problem. It's more of a like, do you give people access to make ad hoc changes or force them to go through the changes to the desired state and the correct process?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, well, great. Thank you everybody for joining us. All uh, we appreciate you coming and checking out the webinar. We'll be sharing this on YouTube later this week if you want to share it with anybody else on your team. And yeah, thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you all for joining.
All right. Bye.